person who lost the coin toss is our deputy mayor, Richard Ivey, and he will present first.
Like Dr. Hawkins said, my name is Richard Ivey, deputy mayor since 2021. The year before, I was city council on Muncie City Council, and I served as the finance secretary, which put me and the mayor in a room together quite a bit in 2020. He saw some attributes in me that he thought would help his administration, and asked me to come on board to help him take the city in the direction he thought was best. I was born and raised in Muncie, other than my college years at IPFW, and I came home and believe it or not, I actually got to work in my profession, which is human resource. A lot of players that I played with, when we get together every 5 years or so, they're like, how do you, none of them are in their profession of study. Many of them are not, but I was. I found myself in automotive, human resource and automotive here locally when the big boom times in early 90s, and eventually ended up being production manager because of my relationships with the employees. The owner asked me to take on that role as well. So I was personnel, production, shipping and receiving, and plant manager. So that was pretty big job, but fared well until the industry started going down, and I found myself as in 2004 looking for a job, or fall of 2003, and I had put my resume in to become a board member for the administration, mayor's administration, which was Dan Cannon at the time. He asked for my resume. He was considering me for some boards, so he actually took that resume and put it in the pool of applicants for human resource. And I served 4 years under his administration, to 2004 to 2008. From there, when the new administration came in, I was released, and that happens in politics. It's kind of what I was told is nature of the beast, sort of say. That's how it happens. So I had to take my own advice. I used to tell people for years, if you're not in school, if you're not working, you're in school. So when I found myself out of work for about 45 days, I re-enrolled to get another degree from Anderson University in organizational leadership. So, which was put me in a cohort for 18 months. You know, every 5 weeks you got to test out of a class. It's really intense, but it was good for me because I had a family and I was running back and forth to North Carolina to see my daughter. My daughter was a 4-time All-American in track and field, so it allowed me to work and still be able to support her in her venture. From there, I landed a job a year later at Lightstream Services. So I actually was able to transition pretty quickly there because it was serving the public, aged and disabled folks, through the Department of Health and Family and Social Services Administration from Indianapolis. So I took a job as quality improvement officer, which allowed me to work with several departments and several individuals and create a risk prevention type of management style, write policies, procedures. We became COA accredited. That's a national accreditation. And I had to spearhead that and then make sure those responsible parties for those certain elements was meeting that criteria through the 10 years I was there. I was there just about 10 years. From there, I still had a desire to serve my community after getting the taste for it from 04 to 08. So I actually ran for city council as well. I had 2 unsuccessful runs at city council in 08 and 2012. But I didn't let that discourage me, and I ran again in 2019. So actually I ran in 12 and 16 and then in 19. And I was successful, and that's how you bridge those gaps between when I was personnel and now being deputy mayor. But in high school, I was into sports. I did acquire a scholarship from Purdue or IPFW. I was I became a member of the Delaware County Hall of Fame several years later, and I'm hearing rumor that I might end up in the IPFW Hall of Fame. I just heard that, so I guess somebody's going to be nominating me. That rumor's floating around, so I think I have the numbers, but that's just somebody in the Hall of Fame has to nominate you. So hopefully that happens. But working for the mayor, I serve at his pleasure. Don't get that mistaken. He allows me to make independent judgments. I've earned the right to make some independent judgments, and some I like to say, let's get with the mayor and see what he thinks. I don't have a problem saying that, because some things he do need to be on the forefront and make those decisions. And we've learned to balance those things where I make decisions independent of him, let him know which direction I went, and those that are laid for him to make the decision to go forward or not go forward. I work primarily with department heads on solving problems. Some people call my department the complaint department, because sometimes you don't know where they land. Sometimes they land in street, parks, code enforcement, community development. And so I bridge those gaps a lot, or bring those people to the table and say, hey, this is the issue. How should we walk down the path to resolve it as quickly as possible and as quietly as possible? So we work through that. So I concentrate on the administrative side. He concentrates on the economic side, because he does know numbers. I've seen a lot of people that know numbers, but nobody knows numbers like this, like the mayor. I mean, he can figure those numbers out like nobody's business. And our focus here as a city, and I'll go with the macro view. Our focus was to provide more services, to enrich Muncie, to make it desirable for people to move to have a healthy environment, invite people to the parks by improving our parks, develop our housing shortage in all areas, workforce housing, and I'm at a loss of words on affordable housing and market value housing. So we wanted to get that so we can raise the general fund without raising taxes and provide more services. So that's the focus. You get the housing under control, you bring more people in, you get more money put into the general fund, you provide more services without increasing taxes. So that's the macro view. And any questions?
Daniel Keene, Ball State Daily News.
Okay.
When you came into office, you were the first deputy mayor in over 10 years.
Uh-huh.
What did that kind of look like coming into what was a brand new role for you and the mayor?
Being there from 2004 to 2008, I was actually blessed to work with the deputy mayor at the time. Phyllis Amber served under Dan Cannon, and I worked closely with her as the HR director then. So I understood a lot of the things she was taking off the table for Dan Cannon, but the mayor and I had to work out those things. He told me what his focus was and where he wanted me to focus, and since then it's been exponential anyway. So first thing I worked on was crisis center. So that's a big eel in Muncie that we're trying to solve. And we have solved part of it. We got the crisis center location. We have the funds for it. We're just waiting on the construction of the building. I work closely with the ACDC, which is a Ball State campus addiction and I'm going blank here about it. Addiction counseling type department, and Addiction Coalition of Delaware County. That's what ACDC stands for, and I apologize for that. So I work with them. They help me with a lot of other organizations, including IU Health, Meridian, to put a package together to present to the mayor that was acceptable financially and according to what the citizens needed and wanted. And I'll be doing the welcoming at the 5th annual symposium for the ACDC. In case you guys are involved in that, I'll be there doing the welcoming for that. But yeah, I had a little experience with that department, and then me and Dan figured out the rest as we went along, and what works best for him and what works best for me. I do have some financial elements associated with my work, which is a revolving loan fund. I am the administrator of that, which comes in and takes applications from applicants who are trying to create businesses that will generate monies and generate jobs and may not meet the criteria, the direct criteria for a standard bank loan. So with our reduced criteria, we may be able to meet that need and get them started on their way with establishing a business and bringing jobs and economic value to our city. So I run that, and I'm also the president of the Delaware Community Development Corp, which is over several brownfields, and getting into brownfields is a real big subject. But it's the areas where I think there's some contamination that may be in Muncie. So Muncie had to take those and work with the state to rectify those situations and make that property viable for other companies to move in on. And so I'm responsible for that as well.
Nate Locker, Ball State Sports Link. Being in the position that you are, obviously Muncie is vastly white, and you being a black man in the position that you are, what does that mean to you and the importance of minority voices, especially in local government?
Yeah, I think Muncie is about 9% African American. I used to watch that when I was in my other role as human resource. I used to watch that just for the human resource practice of that. I don't put any undue burden on myself being African American. I do understand looking through other people's windows what that look like. I've acquired that skill over the years, being in human resource, being able to see through other people's windows. At the same time, knowing I have to stay on a disciplinary road and things of that nature, and in a role where you have to promote. So you just can't promote. You got to promote based on work ethics and work-related reasons. All things being equal, always go diverse. That's my rule. If everything is equal, become more diverse, whatever that looks like. Male, female, you guys know what falls into diversity categories.
I don't get to stand if you don't call me.
Okay.
Maria Williams, Hawkins News 110. You brought up the brownfields, and as a former business owner here in Muncie, having purchased property that was grossly contaminated, and politicians encouraged us to buy a business here in town and set up, what are you doing to make sure future business owners don't fall into the trap we did?
We have a big education outreach associated with the brownfield, because once you purchase, and it happened to the Wiley Community Council as well. We purchased a building not knowing the rules. Within 90 days found out there's some contamination issues, and you only have 60 days to report that after a purchase to have liability still laid with the seller. So we just happen to have a decent relationship with the guy that sold it to us, and he gave us several thousands, more than $10,000 to help towards the evaluation of the property. And then our insurance company kicked in and did some other stuff. But what we're doing is we're educating, we're bringing, we've been several neighborhood associations speaking on brownfields, and we can't do enough to get people to take advantage of our committee in our application process to prevent them from making mistakes that could devastate the business before they ever even, turn the first dirt over. And that's happened a couple times. And we've had people refuse to talk to us for whatever reason. There's some trust barriers there. And then they made the purchase. No, I won't need any of your money, and made the purchase. And then they found out, I don't need your help. And then they found out they may not have made the best decision. But there's nothing we can do at that point.
They didn't know the EPA.
They did, because I explained it to them, and I said, hey, before you make that purchase, and if something's there, we can fix it for you under the grant we got. We received almost $900,000 to relieve that pressure, to make those properties attainable to reconstruct on them and to clean them up. And he's like, nah, I'm not messing with all that. Matter of fact, I already gave my earnest money, and I was like, you sure? And then he thought I was like, I was getting a feel that he thought I was discouraging. So I backed off and said, well, when I see your name go up on your building, I'll be the first one to say you did a great job. I had to back off because he thought it was discouraging. And then he talked to someone else in my committee after the purchase and filled the application out. But coming from me, he wasn't hearing me, but hearing it from someone else. And that happens. It's just some kind of barriers sometimes are there for one reason or another. And I have some people who don't want to fill out an application for economic development from revolving loan fund because they have a history with me because I lived here all my life, and they may not want me to see their finances. So, but I cannot take the application without being privy to it because I'm the administrator. I don't make the decision on it because I'm not part of the finance committee, but I got to work with that individual to sell the finance committee on the product, on the vision, to get them to consider it. And then once they consider it and want to make a favorable recommendation to the full board, I have to be involved in that process. So I don't critique it, but I have the information. Because if it ain't ready to go to the finance committee, I'm the one that got to go back and say, hey, if we can do this and this, this and this, I think we can go to the finance committee and get this done. So I'm like a buffer before I don't like taking just any idea and it's going to fall on its face. I don't like embarrassing people. So I make sure we got a strong package, business vision. And sometimes we work with the Innovative Connector because they have some free entrepreneurial help over there that can help people put together portfolios and things of that nature. So I direct them over there if they're way off base, but if they're not, we work together to put a good package together to submit. And that program's been working well. We speak to African Americans. More than 50% of the people receiving that money have been African American, but more than 50% of those receiving the applications have been African American. So a lot of them are getting denied at banks for whatever reason, but we're able to make that loan with them through our processes and meet our criteria. Go ahead.
Alexander Woods, Boston News Link. You mentioned that you grew up in the city of Muncie. This is your hometown. So how does it feel to know that you're a staple of leadership in your community?
I feel like it's a calling from above me to be in the position I'm in. I'd had no desire to be a deputy mayor under his administration. I was happy to be a city councilman. So sometimes opportunities come before you. You don't know where they came from, but sometimes you have to walk out on faith, and maybe somebody else above you or a peer even have better vision and know that your personality is going to be the right one for a certain position. And you got to be able to step through that. And a lot of that's done with faith, and I'm a faith-based person, so.
Sam Niger, Ball State Sports Link. You got the chance to leave Muncie for your college days up at Fort Wayne, but you were drawn back to the community. So clearly you have a love for this place. Where does that love for this community stem from?
I guess probably like for everyone I had a great childhood. I had a great high school career, 3 sports. I had 11 varsity letters, or 10. I got cheated out of one. So, but I was supposed to start a game. Him and my brother batting rocks around, hit me in the eye of the rock, so I couldn't start the game. So he said he didn't give me the letter because I never actually started the game. But that's a little sore spot with me. But yeah, I was drawn back here. I had a son when I was young, like high school age, and so that relationship still continues. I'm still with her, as a matter of fact. So It's been like 44 years. So been married 35 in August. So that brought me back too. So the emotional ties there. Then I grew up in when families were family, when you ate dinner at the table. So I'm coming from that feeling. Uh, and then just friends and family. I never had a great deal of friendships that grew outside of being in college. I mean, because you come in, you got juniors and seniors, you're a freshman. 2 years later, you got freshmen and sophomores, you're a junior. So you develop relationships and they maintain them. Some last, like we just got together with some. I just got together with some back in November, and, and we talk about things, but I just had a drawing back to Muncie. It's a comfort level with that. And I always saw myself going into HR, but my dad was a General Motors guy, so it was a long. I came back to go into management for Borg Warner. I came back in April, 30 days before school was out, so I had to take independent studies for the remainder of my classes to go into management. And then that kind of fell apart when they had a strike in September of that same year. And so ever since then, it's kind of been making pretty good decisions. I ain't made the best ones, but I made enough good decisions to provide for my family and not need any help with that. And see all of my kids go to school, graduate with degrees, college, and graduate with degrees. My daughter is assistant principal at an elementary in North Carolina. My son is in the social work in Indianapolis. He has about 6 kids he sees to all over the city. Goes to school with them, sit with them, engages them with. They have some bad home life, and he stays in contact with them, meets with them with parents and things like that, trying to get the kids back in the home, stuff like that. And then my other daughter graduated with an HR degree, but she's working for the county. Before she got her full degree, she went to the county and she likes it. So she's gonna stay there till her daughter gets out of school and then pursue her career, which her daughter's in 6th grade. So she's gonna go more into the career side, long-term career side, once our daughter graduates. So, and I believe in education. I can't stress that enough. Go ahead.
Ethan Allen, Newsweek, Indiana. So as you're,
You said Ethan Allen?
yeah, like the French store.
Yeah.
I was gonna say from the infamous or the infamous. No.
But as your job title, I mean, obviously very important. You help the city of Muncie out. Can you share any stories about maybe like a fun or weird time you had on the job, like just a moment out of the ordinary, I guess, from your job?
Be gentle, Richard.
Yeah, fun. Well, if that at other fun at others' expense, yeah, that's when he was playing basketball with some kids and fell and hurt himself because he actually got into the game a little too much. So that was funny. But and it's funny that we had the water balloons, and I told them I wasn't playing. They made me end up playing. So if you know what I mean. Once you get hit with one, now it's on. So because that's the sports in me. But yeah, those are funny things. But it just makes me feel good when departments work together for the betterment of everybody. That's what's good about it. Because you can have people. This is my section. I don't want nobody in my sandbox. You can have that, but we still have those issues, but we work through them pretty well to the betterment of the city. And if they don't do what I say, I'll send them to him. Sometimes I gotta tell them, y'all gotta look at the org chart. This is Dan, Richard, sometimes I gotta point at the org chart. Any other questions for Dan? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Ryan Stojets with Ball State Sports Link. I was wondering, when were you first approached about filling the role of deputy mayor, and what was that conversation like?
Well, Dan called me and intimate conversation we had. He told me about his values and his faith, and it kind of coincided with mine. So I went home and prayed about it for about 3 or 4. I told him 3 days. I think I took about 6. And then I got back with him and told him, yeah, I would accept that role if he thought that much of me to give me the opportunity. Yeah. And I told him we'd figure it out. Because, you know, like you said, 10 years nobody had been deputy. So I told him we would figure it out. Yeah.
This one back there.
Calvin Scott, Daily News. So, I mean, after your tenure with the Cannon administration, you pretty much were like out of like a tenure for something that's like out of your control. So, what got you back into politics with you having like a lot of things in your belt, like automotive skills, HR, public relations?
Well, I've been working with kids for, let me see, I've been working with kids almost 40 years in programming. And I think I had a calling that was bigger, not better, but just more communal, you know, citywide. It just was a calling within me that I could do a lot better. Not do a lot better, but I can have more impact on my community from a higher position like city council. So really I didn't take any time off. When I left in 2008, I ran again in 2000, which would have been 2011, I'm sorry, for the 12 to 16, then I ran again. Those are 2 times I was not successful. So when I told them they got me, I said, I'm just the chemo for it. So I'm gonna cure the cancer. That's my desire, is to make politicians and politics less invasive politically in the city of Muncie. It's a big role. It may not get done during my lifespan, which I've come to understand that. But that's my calling. It's not everybody's. So when people talk about me on social media, I don't retaliate. And I give people a road to come back home, sort of say. So I don't never burn a bridge with a relationship, no matter how bad it gets one-sided. And when they truly can think about what I do, they know whatever they're mad about, it's probably more about them than me at some point, and I just wait on them. Yeah.
Cassie Will, Ball State Sports Link. From your 2 times that you ran and you didn't succeed, what did you learn from those things that like helped you to where you are now?
Well, I learned what gerrymander means. No, I'm just kidding. Well, you heard that word in high school, but you never seen it happen. But it happened to me. But those are things that I learned that some people, and that's the bad side of politics. When people can redirect and redesign a district for favor from one side or the other. And that happened to me. I actually lost to the guy, the other gentleman, the year before the election before by 10 votes. And you can look me up as Ivy versus Anderson, City of Muncie, because we actually had to go to court over that because there was so much that went on. Then the next one was a gerrymander, but I didn't do anything about that. But it's one of those things I come to learn that happens. But it didn't discourage me from my calling. You know, I think Abraham Lincoln lost 2 or 3 elections before he became president. So if it ain't your time, you can work as hard as you want to. But you got to understand the big picture. You can't say the guy that talked bad about you is what cost you the election. Because if it's in God's will, it's going to happen when it's supposed to happen. So, like I said, I have a lot of faith in that.
Brandon Beeman, Ball State Sports Link. You said you had issues with people like saying hate comments do you get people to see you as a person and not just as a politician?
When they say, you say about what online?
Yeah, like you may be getting like hate comments or like people talking negatively about your political views. How do you get people to see you, like realize you're still a person and not just a politician?
I'm always the same. I don't change. My demeanor don't change. My attitude don't change. My respect for others doesn't change. Now, I'm still human, so there are some fires you just don't walk into the fire. But I can get close enough to feel the flames. But I don't walk into a fire. I don't walk into negative situations on purpose. But as they come to me, I just know how to not I keep my emotions under control. That's how I control that. Because, like I said, I'm still human, but I'm able to keep my emotions under control and not retaliate or not even meet them where they're at. Especially if they get loud or use curse words or are very negative and personal on Facebook or social media. It doesn't even fair. I'm more upset with the person who took a screenshot and sent it to me than I am the person who wrote it. Because I didn't know it till they sent it to me. So, I don't need to know how people negatively feel about me because I know me. And I know 90% of that probably ain't true. The first thing they got right was probably my name. Then the rest went south. Somebody told me, somebody told me once it was a good compliment, one of the best compliments I had. They said, if you got a problem with Richard, something wrong with you. Because I know Richard his whole life. And somebody told me that they told somebody that. And I was like, that's a compliment, I ain't had to be there. I ain't had to hear what y'all was talking about. But if you talk about Richard like that, something wrong with you. Because I know him. So. Go ahead.
Luke Barnes, Newslink, Indiana. You talk about your faith and your family. How has working in politics kind of affected those relationships, and how do you maintain a balance in your career?
How do I maintain the balance? Well, actually, I took, being in HR, being in all the trainings I've been in for 30 years, I never thought I could learn anything else about ethics. So I thought I had that pretty much under control. I actually took another ethics class and come to find out there is a golden ethics level to try to achieve. And when I found out about that and what that means, I figured out, what, I still got stuff I can learn too. Even in the subject matters I think that I've pretty much got that mastered. So to balance it, to stay ethical, always know that you always double check. I can see me. So I know that I'm not ever doing anything that's not unethical, but that gives me favor for no reason. So when you know those things now, you can think, okay, when I make this, I'm able to reflect real well. I guess that'd be the best thing. So I'll say, if I make this decision here, how do other people see that? I'm able to, play with that, evaluate that, and then, but sometimes you have to make that decision, even when it looks like it's in your benefit. If it's the right thing to do, it's the right thing to do. Whether it looks like you're benefiting or not, you don't want to. It's like coaching your own son's game. You can never win that. So just don't do it. If you call it even, both sides mad. If you call it lopsided to prove you ain't for your son's mad. And if you call it the other way, it's probably obvious and everybody else is mad. Just don't ref your son's game. That's the best advice I got. Don't ref your son's game or daughter.
Okay, so based on time, we'll stop questions for the deputy mayor here, give the mayor his time to speak, and then if there's remaining time, questions that have come up since you've heard both jobs, you'll be able to ask. Thank you. If we could show our appreciation.
Play with that button. Safety.
Okay.
So just so you know, one of the things that he said was one of the main reasons I wanted Richard as deputy mayor. So you've recorded the whole thing, but it was, I don't burn bridges. So that's an important part of information that I would hope that all of you would understand. If you don't burn bridges, your life will continue to move forward in a positive way. And social media has a tendency to take people down to where they've burnt bridges, but he and I are similar in faith. And I watched him for a year on the council, roughly, maybe 10 months on the council, and his actions, his reasoning, and all the other steps as a member of the council, and I knew he could benefit the city long-term by being in a different and higher role. And I believe that has happened, without question, that has happened. So my background is very different. I did not grow up here. I was born in Indianapolis. My family all were Manual High School. My mother, my cousins, every Manual High School. Some are now Perry Meridian, but mostly Manual in that area. So the near South Side, Garfield Park, in that area. My dad was a pastor, and so we moved around as he changed churches, because just like in business or in media, you might start with a small outlet, you move to a higher. I mean, that's what a lot of people do. Eventually you'll find one where you do not want to leave. But so we moved around. We lived in Indianapolis, Greenwood, Danville, Frankfort. In high school I was a Frankfurt hot dog. And then my dad was at Speedway Christian Church on Winton. By then I was out of, I was in college and out. And then he ended up at Trafalgar, passed away a few years ago. But so we moved around a lot. First time I ever came to Muncie, and I have had cousins who graduated from Ball State, a brother and two sisters who went to Ball State. I was at IUPUI on the IU side, so I was at Ooey Pooey. But the first time I came was in high school. I was a musical, played piano since age 5, but played cello. And I was on the state orchestra. I was pretty good. And my dad had hoped I'd do it professionally, but I always knew I wanted to be in business. Never dreamed or intended to be of a sad thing, but I still play piano from time to time. But moved here from Carmel, had been working here. I received a call. I was covering the state for a mortgage company, which at the time was the 3rd largest mortgage company in the country. I went into banking. So let me go back. Another thing that will be important for, I just think, younger people, because compared to us, you're younger people. But what will be important is you're going to have what you view at the time as the worst thing that could possibly happen. You're going to be distraught. You're going to think I'm not worthy, or whatever you may think. But it often has a positive impact. So I worked my way up. Started as a trainee. Eventually got to assistant manager. Then managed an office. Then got promoted to a higher office. Got a regional position. Thought I was on my way, and I was. But that bank got bought by somebody else. What happens when those mergers occur is middle management, which is the regional, they always keep the branch managers the same, or tend to, because that's customer facing. Regional managers who are over larger territories, they put in their own people. So I lost that job. I was devastated. I was number 1 in the company, but the new company didn't view it that way. They wanted their own people. What it did, I don't burn bridges either. But what it did, I now had a bridge with Old Stone Federal Savings Bank, which is who that was, out of Providence, Rhode Island. I had all those people I knew, and I then came and started working for another company based in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, I was covering the Midwest. I was living here in central Indiana. But I opened up a new territory for them. And they hired me first to run an office, and then after I had proven myself, they immediately made me, pretty quickly, made me a regional. I opened up offices in Columbus, Ohio, Nashville, Tennessee, Indianapolis, St. Louis, 6 or 7 different offices, and it became the #1 region for them, even over their original one, which was mostly in the Southeast, as they were trying to expand. But guess what happened? They got bought by a larger company. Guess what happened? Middle management, I'm out the door again. So you start over again. But I kept my relationships from my first place to my second place, which is now Bank of America. Ultimately, it became Barnett Bank, but Barnett got bought by Bank of America. But as long as you don't burn bridges, you can be deputy mayor or more down the road, is my hope. But not burning bridges is important. When you leave on good terms, and just know that there's something better. And if you keep those relationships, your network will grow. So then I did a third time. This time happened to be Mutual Bank, which is headquartered here. I was working here, driving in, and we loved this community. We fell in love with it because the people are very giving, very friendly, very open. And at the time, I was in Carmel originally when it was about 18,000 people, and it was up to maybe 60, 70,000, 80,000 people, and you could see it was exploding, and all of Hamilton County was doing that. And I just, I didn't like dealing with the traffic. I didn't like dealing with all of that. Muncie, you can go anywhere in 10 minutes, and yet I'm a Pacer season ticket holder, and I'm their longest tenured season ticket holder, by the way. Clark Kellogg's rookie year was my first year buying Pacer season tickets. So I can go to Indianapolis and go to Pacer games, but I don't have to deal with that all day long, every day. So we like the people here, we like the opportunity here, and I had hoped to move up, but I also kind of got a bug or a calling, however you want to look at it, to try and help the community. I ran for city council in '07, same time he was running, and lost. We were running in different districts, but I lost, and then came back later and got into city council in 17, and then, or 15, and then ran for mayor in 20, or not, ran in 19 and took office in 2020. So that part is similar, but that's my background. So just know that never burn bridges. If somebody lets you go, they have their own reasons, and it may not even be their choice. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. Life goes on. Learn from it. Keep those relationships, because you'll reach back and you'll find those people, and they will help you. You will help them, and that will make your life better. So that's just advice. As far as the city, I could see pretty quickly that the city did not even have a communications department. So in addition to adding deputy mayor, we added a communications person, if you can believe that. They didn't have one. So we did that. So I kind of restructured, and I had a lot of business experience, had a lot of success, was #1 in a lot of different companies, even though I'd lose my job. But just know that we restructured some things in the city, and we're now on a different trajectory. Delaware County in the last 2 years has shown population growth, which after 20 years of decline, it's showing growth. And that's great for East Central Indiana, and I do think that the two of us had a part to play in that, but the people we've put into office and the restructuring has had more of it. I have 550 employees in total, and I'm smart enough to know I only had 110 when I was at Mutual Bank, which, by the way, Mutual Bank, after I left, got bought by Northwest. So I would have probably lost my job again because I was a regional manager over their central region. But that's a side note. But I think that we've got the city of Muncie's going some really good directions. I have a lot of financial experience, and I know that you can never cut your way. By cut, I mean expenses. You can't cut expenses to success. You can't do it. You have to raise revenues to success. And when you're in business, you cannot cut expenses and be successful. You have to, it's important to be careful with expenses, but you've got to come up with ways to raise revenue. So one of the things that we've done on the economic side is we have not borrowed for one economic project since I've been mayor. They used to borrow every single time they had an economic project, which meant you get something good today, but you make the next 20 years pay for it. We've not done that, not once. And I don't intend to. We even, there were discussions with Ball State and the city on the new development that they're doing, and I told them, we're not borrowing. We will help participate, but we'll participate to the level that we can participate with cash. And so we've reduced the debt substantially from 58 million to 50 million. That may not seem like a big thing, but believe me, it is. Because if you're increasing your debt, that means you're increasing your payments, and those payments are taking away from the services you want to provide. So we've been very careful. We've not added to TIF districts. I'm not going to go into what that means, but it's a tax increment financing district, which is what a lot of governments use to finance things. We pretty much just use our cash. Or we'll use abatements. And it's just a different strategy, but we're not borrowing because I don't want to make other generations pay for what we get good today. And so, and that's just my strategy. Now, the next mayor that comes in, hopefully, the next mayor comes in, they'll make their own decisions because then they'll be able to do that. But I would think that our beliefs are very similar in that respect. There could be something to where it would be large enough or of such that we would need to borrow, but we're not one who has. We've done a lot. We've added close to 600 housing units, are either built or under construction or being developed. Behind the scenes, meaning architecturally and putting in the infrastructure. And that's not something that Muncie has seen. Just for my own records, are any of you from Muncie or Delaware County? One? So just kind of, where are you from? That's Daniel, I remember that. Yeah, where are you?
I'm from Michigan.
Michigan?
I'm from Hamilton County.
Hamilton County?
He's seen explosions.
Yeah.
I'm also from Michigan.
Okay. Okay. Just kind of go through. Just tell me what state or what city.
Franklin, Indiana.
Franklin?
Naperville, Illinois.
Okay.
Willow Springs, Illinois.
Okay. What was that?
Willow Springs, a suburb of Chicago.
Okay. I know Naperville because I worked for a company that was in that area.
Cincinnati, Ohio.
Cincinnati.
New Haven.
Okay.
I'm from Illinois.
Illinois?
Albany?
Albany. Okay. Well, you're the Delaware County person.
Yeah.
Carmel.
Carmel?
Mishawaka.
Okay.
Indianapolis.
Indianapolis?
Florida.
Florida. Okay.
Winchester.
Winchester?
Noblesville.
Noblesville?
Baltimore, Illinois.
Okay.
Newcastle.
Newcastle. So, I want to clarify, I loved Carmel. I just didn't want to deal with traffic anymore. But I've lived in Noblesville, Greenfield, Lafayette, wherever the promotion took me, we would move. So, and because that's how I grew up, we moved a lot. So I have a completely different background than him, but love this place and love the size community. It has everything you need. Some of the things that you want, for me, Pacers, are just an hour away. Kings Island, or, it's close, it's reasonably close. Airports are close, about half distance. You can go Fort Wayne or Indianapolis. So there's all kinds of things, and yet we don't have to live in that. And every day, and the prices are nice, so it's more affordable. So I would encourage all of you to move to Muncie. That's what I would do. So I'll just open it up for some questions. We'll start here.
You're an avid runner. Your
Yes.
website says 17 full and 33 half marathons. I don't know if that's updated since then. But what has running brought you in such a high pressure job?
And I ran 3 miles this morning. I was out there about 5:15 a.m. I run by myself without music, without any, and it's ponder time. That's what it is for me. It's alone time. I don't take my phone. And so for me, when you're mayor and when you're deputy mayor, there are people reaching out all the time that have needs. And it's important, but there's no time to think about where are we going, what do we need to do, who do I need to, it becomes a challenge. So I use the running for that. And the 17 is still accurate. I haven't run a full marathon since I did the one in Knoxville, the Knoxville Marathon in 2017. But I do a half every year. I did do Ironman 3 years ago. I participated in Ironman, but I don't want to do that swim again. But we do a relay team, but I'm up to, I just did my 40th half this past year. So I still run. I'll do a half again this year. But
Just a follow up to that, where's your favorite place to run in Muncie?
on the trail system. We moved, we used to live in Kenmore, which is not far from here on the other side of Tillotson, and we bought an old house that we tried to buy 15 years ago, and we bought it out of foreclosure. And it's right on McCullough Boulevard. It's about a block from Minnetrista. It's right. You had to wait 3 times last time. So we'll go with you first, then we'll move back.
Yeah, so Ethan Allen, Newsweek, Indiana. So I wanted to go back to your election in 2019.
Okay.
When you got that phone call that you got elected, what was going through your mind, like emotion-wise?
Now what? Now what? And there was a sense of relief because you never know. But I was excited, and I wanted to get to work. I had done some turnaround type situations, and quite frankly, Muncie was going through that. The mayor and the former mayor and 6 others were indicted. So they had indictments, and so I just wanted the Muncie to believe in itself again, and I think we've been able to accomplish that, and Richard's been a big part of that. But that's really what it was. Yes.
Calvin Scott, Daily News. Politics can be very stressful.
Yeah.
So what's your motivation to keep you going each and every day when it goes on? And then based on for like new terms, and re-election comes, what gets you through the day after dealing with all that stress?
Well, you're absolutely right. Politics can be very stressful, and we try, and this is why Richard and I kind of match well together. We try and not do things for political reasons. And I'll just give you an example. In 2019, when I put in the 12 department heads, and I have an R by my name, I was never active in the party prior to running for office. And so I didn't put in Republicans. In fact, I didn't even ask people. Now, some of them but when you've got a person like Carl Malone who runs our Parks Department, who has a love for the children over decades, and a love for the parks, that's who you put in. And it doesn't matter that he's always been a Democrat. That's not the point. I shared with him what my vision was. It was similar to his, and the parks have just taken off. We've done major upgrades on a number of different areas inside our parks. We know that's quality of place. So I'm not very political in general, and that hurts me a little on one side and hurts me a little on the other side, and I figure, well, then that's success. That's success. We'll go here, and then we'll do the two of you. Yes.
Danny here,
Daniel.
IPR News. Before your re-election, you proposed to build a solar farm on GM factory land, and the previous city council voted down that plan, 5-4. Do you plan to bring a new proposal to the new council?
The answer to your question is no. So the city council, in order for the mayor to borrow, the city council has to approve it. Will we have solar on that field? Yes. So we've already done the engineering and paid for it. We've already done the environmental work and paid for it. We have the approval from IDEM, Indiana Department of Environmental Management for the state. We're going to put solar in there, but we're going to put in what we have cash for. And so the council wouldn't let me borrow. Had they let me borrow, we would have $570,000 in solar revenues this year and a beautiful solar field in what was a brown field. I believe it was political because none of the neighbors were opposed to it. At the last neighborhood meeting, nobody was opposed, but it doesn't matter. We continue to move forward. There's still a couple little tweaks we have to do, but there will be a small solar field. And then as there are additional funds, we can add, or future mayors can add, because we did the engineering for the whole 52 acres. And we did the environmental work for the whole 52 acres. So, and IDEM says, the state says nothing else can go on that site for another 20 years. So let's help the Thomas Park, Avondale neighborhood, where that Chevy plant was, and let's do something positive. So we intend to do something. It's still down the road, but we'll do something. But I won't go to the council. I don't need to, because we're going to pay cash. So they had every right to say no, but we're not going to borrow. Oh, I'm sorry. I promised these two, and I'll come up to you.
Brian Shore of Ball State Sports Link. During your career in the baking industry, you mentioned you had some low points, like losing your job a couple of times. What kind of got you through that and made you push through to the next point?
Yeah, so I'm a very active reader. I read a lot of history and about people and biographies and self-help and business books, and I think that helps me. I'm a very routine-driven person, so every morning the first thing I do is I read the Bible. I read a chapter. My grandfather taught me that. Of course, he said I should read more than that because then you can get through it in 1 year. I just read one chapter. And right now I'm in 2 Samuel, which is all about David. And you see all the challenges that David went through, even though he was very favored by God, all the challenges he went through are similar to the challenges each of you are going to have to go through in order to continue to move forward. So what got me through is my reading, faith, where I think Richard's much more of a people. I'm not naturally a people person. I'm a results, activities type person. So I'm the perfect person to say, turn this city around. I'm not the perfect person to. I'm just so. I don't know.
PR.
Yeah.
PR is not his thing.
That's not my thing. So, but I will get something done. I'll put together the plan. I'll get the right people in the right place, and we'll get it through. And so I know my strengths. I know areas where I need to have assistance. And so does that answer the question? Okay. Now we'll come up to Ball State University sweatshirt man.
Sam Niger with Ball State
Okay,
Sports
Sam.
Link. You encouraged us as students to move to Muncie once we graduated here. What have you put in place to encourage Ball State graduates to stay here in Muncie to live and work?
Well, number one, I think we're adding some additional housing, kind of in the downtown area. We're working with Ball State on what they're doing in the village. That's number one. If any of you love trail systems, we have the longest trail in the state. So if you're active and like those types of things, it's a great community. The expenses are very reasonable as opposed to going somewhere else. And with remote, you can pretty much do anything you want. We are the number 2 in the city that's been recruiting remote workers. I don't know if people know that, but if you go to Make My Move, we're number 2. So we've had added hundreds of people who have moved here who were on the West Coast or the East Coast, a lot from Pittsburgh, I don't know why, but have moved to Muncie. They kept their jobs, but they work remote, whether it's HR or they're an engineer or whatever the scenario was. We have a lot of people who like the lifestyle. It is a little slower paced, but it's close to a very large city that's hosting the NBA All-Star game this weekend. But
actually, and I didn't mean to interrupt.
Go ahead.
Actually, 4 hours from major metropolitan cities, 4 hours from Chicago.
Yep.
You're really 2.5 from Cincinnati, 3 from Columbus, Ohio, 2.5 from Louisville, and 4 from St. Louis. If those cities don't offer you much, you can stay here for the weekend. I mean, but if you really want to do something, you can hit one of those major cities within 300 miles.
Yep. So hopefully that answered your question. And then I'll go back there after.
Maria Williams Hawkins, even though I have 3 students who haven't asked their one expected question, I just need you
Oh, no.
to respond to this.
Okay.
I'm watching Yorktown improve and build. What are we doing to make sure all the incoming professors don't move to Yorktown and choose something available here in Muncie?
Well, yeah, so one of the things we were able to do last year is here's what and this is me solving an issue, so we looked at the Storer Elementary, which most of you have no idea where that is, but it was torn down by the previous administration, was just sitting there. And we built our own subdivision. We couldn't find a developer to do it, we built it. We sold all those lots to D.R. Horton, which is the nation's largest home builder. Now, it took a lot of recruiting and a lot of months to get them to see the value of Muncie. They're already in Indianapolis and they're in Fort Wayne. They're out of Texas, and they do 100,000 homes a year. But not only did they do that, but we showed them some other locations, and they're also buying 83 acres here in town and building in 2 phases a subdivision that will have 200 plus homes. So those are a couple of different ways that we've tried to provide the opportunities. Muncie, and we're working with some apartment complexes as well. For those of you who don't know, Muncie has not had other than one that was built in 21 downtown on the river, there have been no market rent apartment complexes built in Muncie since 2003, with the exception of ones geared towards students. Well, that's not where some people want to live, nothing personal, but that's not where some people want to live. The hours are sometimes a little different and so forth, but they want market rent. When we built that apartment building downtown, it only has 55 units, and we're just sold the lot next to it, which is going to add some more housing options downtown, but it's right on the river, across from the park, right on the trail. But 70% of those people that moved into that apartment complex, so 39 of the 55 new residents, 39 of the 55 residents were people who already worked at either Ball State or the hospital, already, and were driving in from Hamilton County. And in the surveys, they said it was because there wasn't any suitable housing. So Richard and I took that as, okay, we have to find suitable housing. And so we built the subdivision, We've now got another subdivision coming over on the east side. We've got conversations going on some other things that'll be happening. So we're taking steps to make sure that there are opportunities, and we've worked with Ball State. We've had numerous meetings with Ball State. In fact, Ball State even gave us 12 acres that we're going to put in our own subdivision, although I think I found somebody to build one. So but you have to have places for people to move. And we had a physician a surgeon who said, I love this community, went and looked for homes, couldn't find any, and moved to Hamilton County because he couldn't find what he was looking for. Now, we've also done a lot of affordable because we have some income issues in areas of the city that we have to deal with. So we've done hundreds of those too. I think 268 of the units are affordable, which means you don't pay the market rent. If your income's $30,000, you pay this. If it's $35,000, you pay a little more. If it's $40,000, you pay a little more. So we've put in quite a few of those as well. But you have to have places for people to move. I promised back there first, then I'll come back.
Nate Walker, Ball State Sports Link. You mentioned earlier that you had a bug or something that or calling, whatever you want to call it, that got you into kind of serving your community. What was that bug necessarily like telling you? What was that feeling? Can you just describe that? And why did it gear you towards Muncie and not other communities? I know you mentioned Carmel and the traffic, but being that that's where you were closer to.
Yeah, so as someone who moved around my whole life, one of the things I noticed about Muncie is a lot of people knew everybody. And when I grew up, every 4 or 5 years we'd be in a different community. And so we never had that. And what I noticed in Carmel, and I lived in 3 different places in Carmel because that's just kind of what you do. But people Carmel is a place, there aren't a lot of people. It's like Atlanta. Most people didn't grow up in Atlanta, but it's a place where people go to. Carmel seems to be a place where people are there for 3 or 4 years, and then they take a promotion and they move somewhere else. And so our neighbors were always changing, and what we noticed about Muncie is you could develop relationships that seemed to last longer. And that's something maybe I craved growing up because we moved a little bit more often than that. So I would say that could be part of it. I don't know. I was smart in that the first thing I did was ask my wife. But when I ran for mayor, all of our kids had already graduated. We already had a couple grandkids. We had our house paid off. The city of Muncie, gosh, this is being recorded. We don't pay well compared to some other, in private, I took a $23,000 pay decrease to be mayor. This was not about money for me. This was about helping my city that I love. So it certainly wasn't a financial reason that we wanted to do it. But I talked to my wife first. Then I went to the bank because I was a regional VP for them. And I said, I think Muncie, I think I can make a difference. They saw what I did. And in it mutually, I started out just as a loan officer and quickly was able to move up and was then a regional VP over years. It's not that, I don't know how quickly that is, but the second thing is I went to my boss and I said, I want to run for mayor, but I need 2 things from you. If it's okay, I'm either going to win, which means I will resign, and here's who I think could take that role. You know, you always try and have a succession plan. Or number two, if I lose, I don't want to lose my job. I want to stay where I am. And they agreed to both of those, and we're very happy that I won for the city. So I did, that's how I started it. I promised back here first.
D.D. Snyder, Ball State Media. When it's all said and done and your time being mayor is over, what is one thing you hope like the people of Muncie say about you and your team?
That's a great question. And I try not to get emotional, but I want people to say that I did what was good for the city. That's the main thing I want people to say, and that the city is better than it was. But it's all about, again, my kids were grown, we were financially positioned to where we could take the pay cut, and I just want to make a difference. And I think as you get older, I think Richard feels the same way. As you get older, your priorities change. There was a time where I was focused on money, focused on business, focused on being number one, and you know, then you get knocked down, and knocked down, and knocked down. Eventually, you get to a point where I think you're more mature, and your focus changes. And mine became, how do I make a difference? How do I leave a legacy? How do I leave an impact? And that's what I'm really trying to do now at this stage. Because I'm in my 60s, so I'm not that far away from being able to retire. Even though I have a long-term goal of do an Ironman at 70, I don't know that I'll do that. Because I don't want to do that swim again. So, yes. Oh, I missed somebody. Go ahead.
Sorry, Danny Huber, IPR News. Your re-election against former City Council President Jeff Robinson also brought in a Democratic majority council, which was comprised mainly of new members. This is a question for both of you. What has it been like to work and negotiate with this new Democrat-controlled council?
Well, Muncie's kind of very Washington, D.C.-esque in that there's a lot of, it's about 50, well, it's not 50, but it's pretty balanced. And so you have to play politics into it a little bit. But I think if you're doing good things and you share the information with them, I think most people will do the right thing. And so we reached out to them in advance of taking office. We shared with them what we had, what was going to be upcoming. A couple of those things are going to be on the agenda in March that I shared with them back in December, and I met with each of them doing that. Richard is very active in that as well. Most people want to do the right thing, and if you share with them how they can do the right thing, they will. And I don't think the party has anything to do with it. There are sometimes people make decisions based on party. I think that solar one was based on party, but most of the time people will do the right thing. And so you just have to have trust that they'll listen and do the right things. But I don't have a problem with anybody who goes through that whole election process. I enjoy working with people who are trying to make a difference. So we just try and share with them how they can help. It was in the back there.
Nathan Hargrave, Ball State Media. You said you've been holding a Indiana Pacers season ticket holder for 41 years. Do you have a favorite moment or player that you've witnessed within those 41 years of holding a ticket?
Oh yeah, the whole team. Well, no, Reggie Miller is definitely my favorite player of all time. Rick Smits is second, and those two teamed up were some of the best years that we've ever had. I had Pacer season tickets, and you know, we were actually in the finals in 2000, and I remember Laker fans are crazy, in my opinion, because I was offered for my seats, which I'm row 17 lower level, so I'm in the lower level behind the basket, kind of by the Pacer side. Great seats, easy in and out, middle, because you never want to sit on the aisles because people all night long are going in front of you. But I was offered $3,000 per ticket for something that was maybe worth $200. 6 years. Smits was there. They brought in the Dale Davis and Antonio Davis, and they brought in Mark Jackson. And I'll tell you what, it feels like that. It's not this year, but we're going to have some really good years because there's some young players that are outstanding. Halliburton is incredible.
We've got, I know we're past time, but one other student had his hand up.
Okay.
So I want him to have the opportunity.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Gavin Whitney, Ball State 110. I was just wondering, with your passion for business at such a young age, who or what kind of just inspired you to take that?
Oh, that's a great question. So I started cutting grass, so I had, at 13, I had 22 lawns that I cut. And one of the people owned a meat market downtown Frankfort, Indiana. It was called Maine Meat Market. And he invited me in, and I would go to lunch with him every other week for a day, and he showed me how the stock market worked. He showed me how business worked. And he convinced me that that's the way you should do it. So it was a mentor. We knew him from church, but it wasn't a family member. My dad had I love my dad, had no business sense. But it was really him. It was Phil Hevlin. And it was Maine Meat Market, and he showed me how to do stocks, and I love doing stocks. So I invest a lot. And he also taught me about business and how to make things work. So it was a mentor. Got me really interested in business.
Okay, if we could show our appreciation.
Thank you, guys. Good job.
I want to thank both of you.